Hi, this video covers everything you will need to know to start printing on the PolyPrinter 229 3D printer. The 229 in the name implies the printer has a 229 millimeter cubic volume. This is roughly 9 inches cubed. So if you design anything bigger than 9 inches cubed, you will have to bond your prints together. We will cover this technique in another video. We normally print ABS using these printers because of its strength. We try to keep a rainbow of colors available to choose from. The 229 can be modified to print NinjaFlex, which is a flexible material. If your project requires NinjaFlex, contact the EE Lab staff for assistance. The first thing you need to do is to create a 3D object. SolidWorks, AutoCAD, Fusion 360, SketchUp are very popular 3D modeling tools. We recommend SolidWorks, and you can request a SolidWorks student license using the help desk system. For this video, we're going to create a simple 3D object using Tinkercad, which is a free online design tool from Autodesk. Go to tinkercad.com and select Join Now if you do not have an Autodesk account already. Create a personal account if your instructor has not provided you with a code. Go ahead and sign up with your student email. Go ahead and type in your birthday. I'm just going to make one up here. And then just use your student email, create a password, agree to the terms, and create your free account. Once you're logged into Tinkercad, select the Create New Design button right here. This will open up the work plane. Make sure you're on the 3D design work plane and not on blocks or bricks. First thing we should do is change the strange random name that Tinkercad gives things. Click the name to change it. I'll call mine UTA Lab Key Tag. Next, click on Edit Grid to change the units and size of the work plane. And I prefer millimeters, and since our PolyPrinter 229 is 229 millimeters cubed, I'll go ahead and set this to the maximum width of our PolyPrinter. You'll notice the left mouse is a selection tool, so you can just select whatever's on the screen by clicking and dragging, while the scroll is just going to zoom in and out of the selection. Hold the right button down to rotate the plane around. See things from the top, the bottom. And if you press and hold the scroll wheel, you can just move things left and right, up and down. So you can choose from these basic shapes over here. You got these are holes actually, and these are regular boxes and cylinders. You have all of these different things to choose from. You actually can click on here and you have text and numbers and all sorts of things that I'm not going to cover in this video, but have fun playing around with that. A lot of neat stuff in there. So go ahead and grab the solid cylinder and place it in the middle of the work plane. So this is a solid one. Let's put it right here. So you will see 4 white blocks on the bottom here. So those are defining the dimensions of this. And 1 white block on the top to define the height. There are also 2 curved double arrows that let you change the rotation in the XY plane or the ZX plane. Of course, being a cylinder, it doesn't change much changing it in the XY plane. So I'll just move that back to 0. Click on one of the bottom white blocks and set the dimensions to 50 millimeters each. So just go in here and type 50, press enter, Click on here, press 50, enter, and now we've got that. Now click on the top block and set it to 3 millimeters. So we want this to be 3 millimeters high, and there we go. And I'm just going to move that more towards the center. There we go. Notice the edges are really kind of choppy. If we left click on this and select it, it brings up our shape menu. And we can add more sides to smooth this out. So let's go ahead and crank this up to its maximum 64 sides. And if we zoom in with the scroll wheel, you notice it does have 64, but it does smooth it out quite a bit. So that looks a little bit better. So click on this solid thing right here, and you can change the color. I'm going to choose white because I plan on using white filament to print this entire thing out. This does not send any kind of notification to the 3D printer to print in that color specifically. It's just more for your visual aid as you're designing. You can actually raise and lower, if you look at the side view here, this little arrow, you can actually raise it up off the plane or lower it where it's underneath the plane. If we were to start a 3D print this way, your nozzle would come over here and just start printing out, and it would look like spaghetti. So this must be set to 0 for the bottom of your project. Okay, I'm changing the size. I need to click on this button and raise it back, lower it back down to 0. Now let's switch over to the text and numbers section over here. And we're going to grab a V right here, and we're going to place it right beside the cylinder. And I'm going to zoom in over it here. There's actually a button here, fit the view to the selected plane. So now I can see it better. I'm going to try to get this nice and level. So we're going to size the X and Y to 30 millimeters each. So we want 30 and 30. And we're going to rotate it in the XY plane 180 degrees. So this moves it up and down. We don't want that. Let's put that back to 0. We want this one, which rotates it in the XY plane. And just so we get a better view of this, I'm going to scroll out. I'm going to click on switch to flat view. So this makes it nice and flat so we can rotate it nice and easy. And a little trick, if you're rotating something, you click on this one for the XY plane. It jumps by set degrees, but if you pull away from your object, then you can have a little bit more control over your angle. So if I want to set it to 76, I come way out here. If I want to just jump to 180, well, minus 180, positive 180, same thing. Okay, so now that we've got that, of course I could have just typed it in. There, nice and easy. Let's color this a nice deep blue. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to change the color over here. And now let's go back to the basic shapes. And let's select this yellow star right here. We're going to put it over here, kind of close, but not overlapping the V. We're going to set the X and Y to 15 millimeters each. So you can click on any of these squares here and just type in 15 and 15. We're going to have to move from orthogonal view to the three-dimensional view so we can access the top square, and we can set the height. We're going to set the height to 4 millimeters. And now I'm going to go back to this mode. We're going to center it, and then we're going to put it in orthogonal view. And then I'm going to back out a little bit. And then I want to change the rotation of this in the XY plane. I think this is the XY plane. And I want it to be pointing straight up. So this is going to be about, not 20 degrees. Let's go with 18. That looks pretty good. And we're going to drag it into the V where it lines up with the inside corner here. So let's just drag this down here. And notice I'm having a really hard time here. I'm going to hold my scroll mouse to bring it to the center of the screen, then I'm going to zoom in. And notice I can't seem to get it to line up with that one. It keeps jumping side to side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the snap grid, and I'm just going to turn it off temporarily, and then I can bring it over here and position it exactly where I want it. So I'm going to have the corners of the top of the star line up with the bottom of the V there. This looks close enough. Maybe I need to rotate this slightly more to get it just right. There we go. That's good enough for government work anyway. So once it's placed well, make sure that the star is selected. Just click on it and click the whole button over here. And what that does is it's going to subtract from your selection. Press and hold Shift and click on the A. So that selects two things at once. And when you select two things at once, it gives you an option right here to group them. So let's go ahead and click on that, and you can see it's completely subtracted it. And this is one object now. If you needed to, you could ungroup it if you make a mistake and go back and do that. Of course, undo and redo functions are also up here. Let's go ahead and change the snap grid back to 1 millimeter, just because it does help line everything up. Now we can center the V to the cylinder's XY plane. So we're going to drag the A inside here, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because what we're going to do is we're going to select the V, or an A now, and we're going to press Shift and select the cylinder. And then what we're going to do is press our alignment function right here, and then I'm going to back out a little bit. You can see we can position that A into different spots, but I want it to be nice and centered, so we'll just click the two middle ones, and then that's done. Now grab the blue star and drag it onto the work surface next to everything, and set the X and Y to 10 millimeters each. So we're going to click on the corner. This is going to be 10 millimeters. This is going to be 10 millimeters. And set the Z to, let's make it 1 millimeter. So that's this block. And we'll turn it to 1 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Now this is going to need to be rotated as well. Now we need to rotate this about 18 degrees, right around here. Okay, and once we have done that, you can change the points. You can actually change it to multi-point. I'm sticking with the 5. You can change the radius, but we kind of already did that, so this should be 20. And you can also change it, the inner radius, to make it more pointy or more fat. I kind of like the way it was, so I'm just going to go back. Let's also color this a nice pretty orange color. How about that? So you can play with the height, radius, inner radius until you're happy with it. Now if you forget the size of any of your objects, you can simply press the ruler button. You can select a point of origin to measure everything by, and then you can just click on what you want to measure. So this gives you all the pertinent information. This particular object's 4 millimeters high, 30 millimeters wide. So you can get back to your everything that you measured there. And you can't see it, but you can use the midpoint of this or an absolute reference from here. So this is measuring from the midpoint, and this is the end point. So that comes in very, very handy. So what we need to do is Since this was, what was it? This was, the cylinder here is 3 millimeters high. We need to raise this off the ground, off the plane, using this arrow here. We're going to move it up 3. And so you can notice it's floating above everything. So now we can place it on top of here. Let me try to get this centered again. Press and hold your scroll wheel in order to do that. I'm pretty happy with that. You can play with it as much as you want. Okay, to finish this up, grab and hold this whole cylinder. So under basic shapes, we're going to check this. We're going to grab this cylinder that is also defined as a hole. We can easily move it from solid to hole using these two buttons right here. The size of this, we need to fit a key ring through here. So let's make it about 4 millimeters on each side. And the height of this, as long as it's higher than this, it doesn't really matter. I'll make this 6. So press on here, make it 6. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to line this hole up with this part right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag it over here. And so you notice it goes all the way through. And we're going to select this cylinder and this large cylinder. Press Shift, click, and then you can go back to your alignment. And then you want it to be lined up straight this way. And that seems good enough to me. Okay, so you don't want to select everything at this point and group it. You lose your color information because everything's grouped. So let's undo that. So what we want to do is select this cylinder, hold down Shift, select this cylinder, and then we can group it, and then that takes the hole out of there. Now all we have to do is export our STL file. Click Export and ensure that everything in the design is selected here, and press STL, which is what we're going to use with KISS Slicer. Save your file. So now we're going to take this STL file and we're going to turn it into machine readable G code using KISS Slicer.